Yeah.
Next day, September 13th, they talk of buying explosives. The feds say that Captain Autism, Croft, Garvin, Frank, all the big guys, plus Big Dan, and of course, Robeson, 2 undercover FBI agents, and others gather at Garvin's place in Luther. They talk of the kidnapping. FBI undercover agent Red tells Captain Autism it will cost about $4,000 for explosives to blow up the bridge. They talk of a final training exercise in October. So this part of the story is absolutely nothing on this day. There's a bunch of federal agents telling an American, hey, $4,000 to buy explosives. That's the only thing that was said. And it says they talk of kidnapping. No quotes, though. Right? And the interesting thing is if Captain Autism says, okay, I'm in. I don't got the $4,000. Robeson would be like, or you know what I mean? Big Dan would be like, got the $4,000?
I'll cover you.
Yeah, the feds could pay you, give you money to give to another fed to do something illegal. Okay. 3 days later, September 16th, suspects avoid rally. The main people decide against being part of the First Amendment protests in Lansing. The feds say, quote, there needs to be zero, and I mean zero public interaction if we want to continue with our plans. Harris writes, quote, when the time comes, there will be no need to try and strike fear through presence. The fear will be manifested through bullets. Okay, so Harris said the first thing. Caserta responded to him. Now Captain Autism responds, copy that, boys, loud and clear. Remember the name of their group is the Boys, so that's relevant. Okay. So they want zero public interaction because they don't want to be seen by anybody. So there's this thing, it's called the internet, and they've already got all these internet videos.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
None of it makes any sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, now we're going 10 days later, so we're getting really close now. September 26th, informant buys a gun. Okay, this is ridiculous. Stephen Robeson, the FBI informant who's been hosting all of the events, right? While working as an FBI informant, illegally buys and sells a sniper rifle in Wisconsin, a 10-year felony. Quote, on that day, he had authorization from the FBI to otherwise engage in illegal conduct, his attorney wrote. Robeson later pleads guilty in federal court and is sentenced to probation. So the feds told him, you have permission to go buy this gun, but they're going to convict him of it later. Okay? So if you're thinking about being a federal informant, I'm just saying, they're not pitching a good case.
You're not special. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I should tell the Robeson story now that we're this far into it. Okay, look. This guy had committed felonies, then he did something, then the government captured him, and then said, hey, but you don't have to go to prison, you can set these other guys up. So then he sets these other guys up, right? At one point, he realizes that this is terrible what they're doing, you know? So he starts giving inside information to the guys, right? But the problem is some of the guys he's giving inside information to are also federal informants. So a federal informant is giving information, hide evidence, to another federal informant. So now the feds know. So then they go after him for buying the sniper rifle that they said he could buy.
Wow.
So they give him, here, you're immune. And then, okay, I'll do it for you then, brother. You know, he goes and doesn't, like, you're under arrest, right? That's the Robeson story. But the interesting part of the story is he felt bad at one point.
Right.
This guy did, just don't do what he did. But at one point, he did try to redeem himself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There is a redemption arc, and it's not incredibly significant, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
he's a real person who thinks and made bad. He's conflicted. Yeah. Okay. And then there's going to be more stuff with that guy. His story is going to continue, but I kind of just wanted to give you a little foreshadowing, I guess. October 2nd, Taser. Feds say that Fox in chat message tells Big Dan he had bought an 800,000 volt taser. Okay. I'll put the picture on the screen. I got to download it because I didn't download it, but I'll put the picture on the screen of Captain Autism hitting a taser, just hitting a taser in the air. This is one of the pieces of evidence against him. So I looked it up. An 800,000 volt taser is $59.99 at Bass Pro online. They'll ship it to you, and it's legal in that state for an ex-felon to have. So there's nothing wrong. It's like buying your girlfriend a purse taser, and they're like, Exhibit 3.
Right.
Oh, why is this even here?
Evil mastermind.
Yeah, they just wanted to put the picture in front of the jury of him, a taser, and they're like, oh, scary. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. So that was October 2nd. October 6th, remember they're going to be arrested on October 8th.
Yep.
October 6th, criminal complaint. A criminal complaint is filed in U.S. District Court in Grand Rapids. So U.S. District Court is the federal court. And against Adam Fox, Captain Autism, Barry Croft, Ty Garbin, Caleb Franks, Daniel Harris, Brandon Caserta, the main six who are going to get federal charges, alleging conspiracy to commit kidnapping. And that's the October surprise. The next day, October 7th, they do the bust. They arrest Fox, Franks, Harris, Garbin in Ysplanty, where they had driven to pick up free gear from Red, who was the federal agent, not informant. Okay. The feds arrest Caserta at work and Croft in his home state of Delaware.
Also, there's actual agents that are working this as well. There's not just informants.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because when I say two undercover agents, those are different ones. Okay, and gotcha. Red has always been an agent, not an informant.
Okay, gotcha.
The other agents aren't named. So then they arrested Croft in his home state of Delaware. The FBI says its investigation was cut short because of a potential, quote, potential compromise to the informant at the time.
Okay.
Which means October surprise. So they wanted to investigate further and loop more people into it, but they were given orders from above that October surprise, do it now. Okay? So now we're going to go past the incident and just give some interesting highlights, okay?
Okay.
So that was October 7th. October 28th, FBI informant Robeson is accused of fraud. A woman complains to police in Wisconsin that Stephen Robeson, one of the FBI informants, had defrauded her. Charges are filed more than a year later. He gets charged in South County, Wisconsin, with defrauding a couple out of an SUV by convincing them to donate it. Well, he convinced them to buy it and donate it to an anti-child sex trafficking charity that did not exist. According to the criminal complaint, his wife, Kimberly Robeson, was also charged. Both face up to 3.5 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000 if convicted. So him, I don't know if it was for this one. I can't recall. I only got so many hours to research this stuff. But for either the sniper rifle or for this, I can't remember which one, but he only got probation and time served, which was below the minimum prison time required. Gotcha. So he did get a good deal, even though they were trying to like come back on him, you know?
Yeah.
December 16th. Okay. December 16th, a federal grand jury indicts the 6 suspects on charges of kidnapping conspiracy. What? Okay. What are you talking about? So here's the 2 ways that life works, okay? Yeah. You smack somebody in Walmart. A cop comes and arrests you. You're under arrest. You go to jail. You can bail out. You go to your hearing, you know, within 72 hours or something like that, you know? Or it's alleged that you smacked somebody. So it's alleged that you took money from your employer.
Oh, yeah.
There's an investigation, but they can't prove it, so they have to go to a grand jury and indict you. If the indictment comes down, they arrest you.
Okay.
Not like this. If there's anybody who's been a federal informant or something and you know what's going on here, put it in the description below because I don't have experience in that era. But what I'm saying is, how do you arrest them on October 7th, right?
Okay.
You got a right to speedy trial, but charges haven't been filed?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because now go to December 16th and it's like, you were indicted. Well, I'm sitting in a federal jail cell. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So then I'm going to pop the mug shots up on the screen of the 6 defendants.
Okay.
And so top left is Caleb Franks. Middle, Brandon Caserta. Top right is Captain Autism, Adam Dean Fox. Bottom left, Daniel Harris. Bottom middle, Barry Croft. And bottom right, Ty Garbin. Okay?
Okay.
So January 27th, 2021. Okay? So now we're at the beginning of the next year. Ty Garbin pleads guilty to conspiracy to kidnap and agrees to testify against others.
Nice.
He is later sentenced to 75 months in federal prison, later reduced to 30 months.
Okay.
So he gets 2.5 years for telling on his friends. Okay. Now we'll go April 28th, 2021. Conspiracy to kidnap. A superseding indictment accuses Fox, Croft, Franks, Harris, and Caserta, the 5 who didn't tell, of conspiracy to kidnap, which means they've upgraded the charges based on the now testifying guy who's spoiling it for everybody. Captain Autism, Croft, and Harris are also charged with conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction. I guess that's explosives. This is silly terminology. Croft and Harris also charged with possession of an unregistered destruction device. Harris charged with possession of an unregistered short-barreled rifle. Okay. January 6, 2022. The feds reveal informant Stephen Robinson acted as a double agent, tipping off a suspect about pending arrest and telling another to get rid of evidence, not knowing that man was also an informant. That's the story I told you about. But January 6, 2022 is when the feds admit that happened. So it's funny because Stephen Robeson doesn't get to testify in court, you know. January 25th, 2022, judge doesn't dismiss charges. U.S. District Judge Robert J. Yonker, I'm going to say Jonker, it could be, denies the defense request to dismiss all charges based on entrapment. And there's more about that in the link below. But February 9th, 2022, guilty plea. Caleb Franks pleads guilty as charged, agrees to testify that he and his co-conspirators were not entrapped or induced to commit the crime. I thought it was Garvin. I thought Garvin was going to flip. I knew there was a second one. I'm like, I think it's Garvin. Nah, it's Franks. Okay. So he's going to testify that they were not entrapped or induced to commit the crime. So what do you think of this story?
I just, without the influence of the feds there, I mean, it's a dude that gets high in his basement, and it's guys that go play soldier in the fields sometimes and are terrible at it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And we had discussed when we talked about this video, and you were like, well, get more into the entrapment. Like, what is entrapment?
Yeah.
And I looked at it, and it's like, it's inducement, you know?
Okay.
And inducement does not constitute lying, this and that, you know? Because, like, if you're being questioned by a police officer, they could be like, we found your fingerprints at the screen, at the scene. We already tested them. They're yours. You know what I mean? You think you were wearing gloves? We got technology that can go through the gloves now and test it. They can say that.
Yeah.
And if you're like, I did it. I'm so sorry. Got him. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
But, like, we didn't say, I'll jerk your arm in this position. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You just, so they're allowed to lie. But the laws are just really lenient to allow the government to do a lot of entrapment. And that's a terrible thing.
Yeah. Awful.
And then if you're the officer who goes and does it, you're a terrible person. If you're the informant who's aiding in this, you're a terrible person.
Totally.
If you get caught doing a crime and you're doing the crime and they say, hey, we can keep you out of jail. My wife and I were watching Sopranos, right?
Okay.
And we were watching it last night. And what's Chrissy's girlfriend? Adriana,
yes.
Adriana. And then they pull up to her and they're like, hey, this lady was a federal agent. Come with us for 30 minutes. No.
Yeah.
No. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No good can come of this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't remember how the story ends. I've seen it before. She hasn't, but I'm pretty sure no good will come from it. I'm just guessing. Pretty fair guess, right?
Probably.
Okay. So now I want to talk about what happened to these people.
Okay.
Because basically you see like the news just last week, so it'll be 2 weeks before this gets published. I mean, 3 people acquitted. What 3 people? What level were that? Was that state, federal? So I've got a link in the description below, and you can see by the title which one it is. And I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of everything that happened. Okay. So Caleb Frank pleaded guilty. Okay, so I messed up before. The 2 people who flipped are Franks and Garvin. And when I was saying it before and I said Franks flipped, I'm like, I thought Garvin was the one. Yeah, it was Garvin and Franks were the 2. And so Caserta didn't, Harris didn't, Fox, and Croft. Okay, so Caleb Franks pleaded guilty. He cooperated with federal prosecutors before the initial trial in federal court began. He became a key witness in both federal trials, testifying against his former co-defendants that the plot was real. Franks is currently serving a 4-year prison sentence. And so he got 4 years.
Okay.
Garvin pleaded guilty, cooperated, and then he's the one who's reduced from 6 years to 30 months.
Okay.
Okay. So now there's 2 different federal trials, and they get a mistrial after one. The federal people do. So it's kind of unclear which comes from which one. But let's talk about Captain Autism first. He was convicted of conspiracy to kidnap and conspiracy to possess a weapon of mass destruction. Prosecutors labeled Fox, who was living in the basement of Grand Rapids vacuum repair shop at the time of his arrest, the ringleader of the plot. So he's the ringleader, and Big Dan, the federal informant, is second in command. Captain Autism and Big Dan, the federal informant.
Gotcha.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. In August 2022, a jury convicted Fox across all counts. That was the second trial for Fox, as a West Michigan jury couldn't land on a verdict in April of that year, triggering a mistrial. Fox was sentenced to 16 years in prison in December. Captain Autism, 16 years. Barry Croft, convicted of conspiracy to kidnap, conspiracy to possess weapons of mass destruction, and knowingly possessing an unregistered destructive device, which is weird. I thought he was the SBR guy. Okay. Croft of Bear, Delaware, so one of the foreigners, was convicted alongside Fox last August and was sentenced to 19 years in prison that December, a few days after Fox was sentenced. Brandon Caserta, acquitted of conspiracy to kidnap. Caserta of Canton, is that Canton, Ohio? So he would be the other foreigner? I'm not sure. There could be a Canton. I don't know. Stood trial along Fox and Croft in April 2022, but a jury found him not guilty of conspiring in the plot. He declined to testify in the second trial, invoking his Fifth Amendment right at the advice of his attorney to avoid self-incrimination. Okay? So, and it's kind of confusing how they worded that, which has led to my confusion. But if he was found not guilty in the first trial of conspiracy to kidnap, he could still be in the second trial for the other things.
Okay.
And so now he's invoking his Fifth Amendment right in the second trial. But I'm not sure. I believe they could still use your testimony from the first trial.
Oh.
They could just put that into evidence if they want to, the defense
Gotcha.
or the prosecution, depending on if it's incriminating or... Okay. Second federal trial, Daniel Harris, acquitted of conspiracy to kidnap, conspiracy to possess weapons of mass destruction, possessing an unregistered destructive device, and possessing SBR. Harris of Lake Orion was the only defendant in the initial federal trial to testify on his own behalf. He was found not guilty on all counts. So Harris and Caserta did better than the people who snitched, Garbin and Franks.
Interesting.
But the people who snitched, Franks and Garbin, did better than Croft and Captain Autism.
Right.
Who got 16 and 19 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about state court real quick. There's 8 state court people. 3 of them in Jackson County, 5 of them in Antrim County. One guy, so these guys weren't really in the story, but it's interesting because when you say 14, like who were these other guys?
Yeah.
At no point were any of these mentioned, I believe. Okay. Pete Musico, convicted of providing material support for terrorist acts, gang membership, and carrying or possessing a firearm during a felony. Musico of Munith was sentenced to a minimum of 12 years in prison last December. He and 2 other co-defendants were found guilty by a Jackson County jury for providing support for those charged in federal court. Providing material support for terrorist acts, and you get 12 years in state court?
Boy, I mean, that could just be, hey, I'm at Bass Pro Shops and they got a sale on 556. You want some? And bam, you got 12 years.
I agree.
Wow.
But I wonder, yeah. Okay. Joseph Morrison, convicted of providing material support for terrorist acts, gang membership, carrying same exact crimes as Musico. Morrison, who was Musico's son-in-law, was sentenced to 10 years in prison alongside Musico. So 12 years from Musico, 10 years for his son-in-law, Morrison. Paul Billar, convicted of all 3 of the same crimes. Billar of Milford received the shortest sentence of the trio tried in Jackson County, a 7-year prison stand. These are people that they could not try in federal court because they didn't have a case good enough. Okay, Antrim County. Sean Fix pleaded guilty, providing material support for terrorist attacks. Fix, that's his name, of Belleville, pleaded guilty in front of Antrim County judge in June. Rather than facing trial alongside Molitor and Knowles, he faces a maximum of 20 years in prison. I forgot to continue the research and find out what he really got.
Oh, okay.
But he pled guilty. Now the next guy, Brian Higgins, also pleads guilty to the exact same thing. And so they gave him a lesser charge in March, which avoids his trial. He faces a maximum of 5 years in prison. Okay? So now it said Fix didn't want to go to trial alongside Molitor and Knowles. So who are Molitor and Knowles? That's Eric Molitor, Michael Knoll, and William Knoll. And those are the 3 you just heard about 2 weeks ago from when this is published.
Oh, okay.
All 3 acquitted.
Oh.
So the first guy, Fix, who didn't snitch on him though, he just pled guilty and threw himself on the mercy of the court, gets up to 20, and I forgot to research what he exactly got. But he could have went to trial with the 3 and got nothing.
Wow.
Got acquitted. Yeah, it's a really risky game, you know? And then that's everybody. So one of the things I think when I'm thinking about this is like, man, they do something crazy, wild like this, just unconstitutional, morally repugnant, evil, just terrible. They're just, it's treason. You know, they do this. And it's like, but the people will get off, right? No, not really. They're going to throw a bunch of poop against the wall. Some of it's going to stick.
Yeah.
Happy for the Knowles and Molitor.
Yeah, it's cool.
You know? But what about the autistic guy who needs some help?
Right.
You know, like, and I think about him, I think, that dude's a little dangerous, honestly. Do you want him as a next door neighbor? He's a little dangerous. But he also just kind of needs a little bit of help. He doesn't need like an asylum. He's not that dangerous.
But don't people who smoke weed just sit around and smoke weed all day? Like, that's not a motivational drug,
and talk
right?
about things that, dude, I got this idea.
Right.
You know? Yeah. Well, apparently, if you get a federal agent over there, he'll go out and do some stuff. You know? But, like, you look at, like, you even see the people who plead guilty, you know? They got, can they pay for a lawyer? If not, they got a public defender. It's going to be rough for them, you know? This guy pleads and could have got up to 20 years, but the other guys are acquitted. It's just poop against the wall, and we're going to see what sticks. Hopefully we can keep down as many Americans as possible.
Right. And in the end, it's not even about Whitmer. It's about the election. You know what I mean? It's,
right.
They're just cannon fodder.
Right.
These guys.
Yeah, Whitmer's quoted, you know, her response to this is Donald Trump. This is right-wing terrorism. This is Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump FBI. It is not right-wing terrorism. It's not right-wing anything because one of the guys was a super Trump hater. One was an anarchist, you know? I forget which one I should have had that. But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like this is what your government will do to you, you know?
Totally.
And what they do all the time.
Right.
Because we go historical, like, hey, you know what they did in the 60s? Let's do Gulf Tonkin, or you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's just happening continuously.
This is just it's a normal thing.
It's a normal thing.
If you don't know that, you haven't watched enough of our videos.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
There's just I don't see any way that you can see a story like this and say this entire system has to go with all of its institutions.
Right.
You could say, well, it's just the FBI has to go. Donald Trump's FBI, well, and Biden's FBI, and Obama's FBI. Yeah, just the FBI, right? Okay, chart a path for that.
Right.
Chart a path where all the people who committed treason in the FBI get hung for treason. Chart that path.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing.
Who are the people that are trying them, persecuting them, or prosecuting him? You know, I mean,
right?
They're just as bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, one of the lessons here is there's no solution within the system.
Right. Yeah. Ultimately, this video is a reflection of showing you what the system actually is.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also don't want to say everybody's like, well, because of a story like this, don't join a group. Don't participate in any collective action.
Yeah.
No, that's not the answer. So we got a link in the description, a video we made called "You Don't Join Movements: The Power of Collective Action." Right. But if I join a group, and I kind of did join a group, one time, and then I went to a meeting with a guy,
Yeah.
and he sat down and he said, "So this book I'm writing, here's what people like me and you do," and it's like, you don't know me, dude. I'm out. I'm out of that group now.
Yeah.
So if you get in a group and it's like that, don't do it.
Right.
If you get into a group like this, don't do it. You could, like, except for the explosives, you could have gone to all their training sessions and just kept your mouth shut, and you'd never nothing.
Right.
Unless you hear a conversation and then they're like, go pick up 556 for us.
Right.
Now you're contributing. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I like the last points you were making about, because I was processing that as I'm ticking off things. All right, so I can never buy ammunition for someone who I haven't known for a long time. Just all the things that you just could get roped into one of these things.
Right.
One of these false flags, just because you are doing something nice for someone you haven't known very long. You know what I mean? Like, you can't.
And I just feel like it's kind of obvious.
Okay.
If they recruited you and you walked into any one of these scenarios, you would just walk in, like, look around, and be like, I'm out.
Right.
Are you Victor? No.
No.
I just parked here,
Yeah.
I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, is it the tow truck company or yeah?
Yeah. I feel like I was watching Sopranos last night, right?
Right.
And at one point, Patsy comes into Sil,
okay.
and he's like, hey, should we do the thing, And Sil's like, yeah, go ahead. And Patsy's like, so say it. We're going to do what? And I turned to my wife and I'm like, he's wearing a wire.
Yeah, obviously.
Now, he might not be because it's not been exposed that he was wearing a wire. But that's the time that I snatch you up, throw you on the ground because I'm Sil.
Oh, okay,
you know what I mean?
right.
I'm like a mob guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I throw you on the ground and strip off your clothes because we're looking for a wire.
Right.
And don't ever talk to me like that again. Because if you don't got a wire on,
you're just stupid.
You just don't know how to do mafia stuff,
Right.
I've never been in the mafia.
But you've watched Sopranos, how
Sopranos. I've watched Sopranos. Like, dude, you don't just say direct things like that.
Right. Or try to make someone else say a direct thing. I don't know why we're talking about this.
No, it would be very interesting, though, to see, like, books being written by people who were like, nah, I was in that group. And then I heard Captain Autism talk one time, and I left.
Oh,
I was like, oh, yeah. He said, hey, we should. And the door was closing as he said the last word. Because you just know it's a setup.
Right.
And so they're just looking for... This is another good argument. Like, I would never fall for this stuff. I wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't. But there are people who would. And there's this predatory agency out there spending tons of tax dollars. Not your tax dollars, because they're just printing the money.
Yeah.
They're just printing the money. They're not spending your tax dollars on it. And they're just looking for stupid people. They're looking for criminals. Then turn the criminal and say, do you know any stupid people? You know any autistic people? Can we take advantage of them? Because we need a story. Election's coming up 2024. What are we going to get? And when you see this headline come, you should be like, nah, I'm cool.
Right.
I'm cool, pass. I don't believe it. Any of it.
Yeah.
No evidence.
Right.
That's what I got, I guess.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially about it's such a certain group of people that they're targeting.
Right.
This isn't a group that's just aware of things isn't going to fall for this type of thing. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Like if you were like a machinist, you'd be way too smart for it. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like a bus driver, you'd be way too smart to do the stuff.
Just anyone who's aware of and thinking a little bit. Yeah, it's so predatory.
Do you know anybody who lives in a vacuum repair shop? Basically, no, just kidding.
I keep thinking of at the end of Breaking Bad when that's where they're hiding it in the. Remember they're hiding.
Oh yeah, the vacuum guy who gets him out of town.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
That's what I keep picturing. That's
okay.
Where,
I'm picturing some dingy brick building. It's got he sleeps on a sofa. Okay. He pays the dude like $75 a month. You know.
Yeah.
Dude keeps complaining that it smells down there because he never washes. That's what I'm thinking. Sure. I don't know. Anyways, okay.
Okay. So it was kind of a long and lot of facts. There was a lot of different things that went on. I knew I could have summed up my knowledge of this in like 3 sentences before we did this.
I put this down as a light research video in our video ideas, and I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding me?"
Extra large.
Yeah.
So hopefully you got through this and learned some stuff. I learned a ton of things, and man, FBI is the worst.
The worst.
Well, probably tied for the worst with a lot of other people.
Right.
But
all the other people.
They're definitely succeeding in that failing. So let us know what you think. If you have more stories like this, we'd love to add things to our list of things to research that just prove the points. I mean, they do it for us as far as proving how bad they are. And if you're interested in this type of stuff, we've got lots of other videos about FBI, ATF's another good one. So check them out, Waco, Ruby Ridge, that type of thing. And hopefully we'll see you next time.